You are watching A News. I'm Katie Wilson. Here are the top stories for today. Russia and the US inch closer to a rare earth metals deal, according to the Kremlin. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan emphasises his country's potential role in revitalising the EU's ageing economy and workforce. Catholics gathered at St. Peter's Square in the Vatican for a prayer service for Pope Francis. There is a slight improvement in the pontiff's condition. Russia says that they have lots of rare earth metal deposits that the United States is in need of. The Kremlin says it is open for deals with the US on the matter.
The Kremlin confirmed that Russia holds substantial rare earth metal reserves and is willing to explore deals to develop them. President Vladimir Putin offered the U.S. the opportunity to jointly explore these deposits and supply aluminium to the U.S. domestic market, suggesting a future economic agreement between the two countries. U.S. President Donald Trump had previously stated that major economic development transactions with Russia would take place. Rare earth metals, a group of 17 elements, are crucial for making magnets that powerful electric vehicles, cell phones, missile systems, and other electronics. Due to their importance in these sectors, securing reliable supplies is geopolitically significant. According to U.S. Geological Survey data, Russia possesses the world's fifth largest reserves of rare earth metals, following China, Brazil, India, and Australia. Following Putin's suggestion of possible collaboration with the United States, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov emphasized that the U.S. depends on rare earth metals and Russia has abundant supplies, suggesting the potential for cooperation or deals based on this resource. Putin also expressed to state TV on Monday that Russia is open to joint projects with American partners, including both government and private sectors, as part of a potential future Russia-U.S. economic agreement. He suggested the possibility of opening the American market to Russian aluminium producers, suggesting they could sell 2 million tons without significantly affecting prices, though it could help stabilize them. He further emphasized the potential for collaboration with American companies, describing the project as capital and investment intensive, with an estimated value of $15 billion.
Rare earth metals are a very important component, very important resources for modern sectors of the economy, and we're not doing much in this direction yet. We must do more. The purpose of today's meeting is to focus administrative resources on this area at the first stage. By the way, we would also be ready to offer our American partners, when I say partners, I mean not only government structures but also companies, if they showed interest in working together.
Meanwhile, the U.S. and Ukraine are negotiating a separate deal involving rare earth metals, which Trump stated is pretty close to conclusion. However, Putin noted that those negotiations were not a concern for Russia.
US President Donald Trump and French President Emmanuel Macron displayed stark differences on Monday in their approach to Ukraine. During a day of talks between the two leaders, Trump and Macron showed a friendly rapport based on years of good ties. But Macron made clear he disagreed with Trump on some key issues as they marked 3 years since Russia invaded Ukraine.
Speaking at a joint press conference with U.S. President Donald Trump in Washington, D.C., France's President Emmanuel Macron said that he was hopeful of a turning point on the future of European security. The two leaders met on the third anniversary of the beginning of the Ukraine war.
We want peace. That peace cannot mean capitulation by Ukraine. That peace cannot be a ceasefire with no guarantees. That peace must include the conditions for Ukrainian sovereignty.
Macron warned on Monday that peace cannot mean the, quote, surrender of Ukraine, but said that talks with U.S. President Donald Trump has shown a path forward. President Trump said that he was pleased to hear from President Macron that the cost and burden of securing the peace in Ukraine must be borne by the nations of Europe, not alone by the United States.
Our focus is on achieving a ceasefire as soon as possible and ultimately a permanent peace. My meeting with President Macron today was another important step forward in that sphere.
President Trump repeated his concern at the press conference that the war in Ukraine could eventually evolve into a third world war, and he vowed that he would never let that happen. President Macron said that the progress has also been made in reaching an agreement with the U.S. on security guarantees for Ukraine. The French are proposing a European security force to be deployed in Ukraine once a peace deal with Russia is signed.
Once there is a solid, durable, negotiated peace signed by Ukraine and Russia, of which we will collectively be guarantors, France has worked with the United Kingdom to say, we are ready to contribute.
Macron was confident that the U.S. would show solidarity for such a plan and said that Trump had confirmed that he will meet with President Zelensky soon to finalize the agreement on critical minerals and rare earth. That has been a key demand by Washington. That agreement has also been a sore point of contention between President Zelensky and Trump.
I believe that Emmanuel agrees with me on many of the most important issues. Chief among them is this is the right time. It may be the only time, you know.
I also came here to transmit a very clear message of European commitment. We are committed to building a lasting peace. We are committed as Europeans to being involved in these security guarantees.
So overall, a very positive and warm atmosphere here in Washington, D.C. between the French and American leaders, with Macron attempting to bridge the divide between Zelensky and Trump and reaching a mutually acceptable way forward for Ukraine. Amubi Shabander, Washington, D.C., A News.
Meanwhile, across the globe, people are continuing to show their support for Ukraine on the third anniversary of Russia's invasion. Demonstrations have been held on Monday in major cities such as London, Paris and New York, with protesters calling for ongoing aid and a resolution to the conflict.
Rallies in support of Ukraine have continued worldwide, with demonstrators marking the third anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion. The rally coincided with talks between US President Donald Trump and French President Emmanuel Macron at the White House. In New York City, hundreds gathered in Times Square on Monday, calling for global solidarity.
I'm here today in New York City, on Times Square, to send message to all world. The war in Ukraine is total injustice. The world leaders is a weakness, and they are doing everything just for them agenda and political ambition.
Meanwhile, in London, over 1,000 people gathered in Trafalgar Square, including many Ukrainians living in the UK.
To be here tonight with you to mark the third anniversary.
Berlin also saw thousands march to the Brandenburg Gate, with demonstrators making stops at the Russian embassy.
I hope that the new elected government will continue to supply weapons to Ukraine, that it will work together with the European states to ensure that a major counterweight to Russia, and now also to Trump, is developed, that they also start a joint army, for example, that all European states support Ukraine, even if, for example, Orban does not join in, or other nationalist countries.
In Warsaw, both Ukrainians and Poles protested, voicing not only their support for Ukraine, but also criticism of Trump's remarks that blamed Kyiv for not stopping the fighting.
Honestly, this came as a shock to me, because I have always thought that the United States, as a democratic country, as a country who who values freedom, would support the Ukrainian fight. But as for me, I think that this is This is unacceptable to not blame Russia for starting this war. This is unacceptable to blame Ukraine for, making this war happen. This is a false rhetoric that just should not sound in the democratic world.
In Paris, the Eiffel Tower was illuminated in Ukraine's blue and yellow colours as a symbol of solidarity. As the war enters its fourth year, it's Ukraine's civilians who endure the hardships that war has brought on the nation, with more than 10 million people forced to leave their homes and thousands who've lost their lives.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says only Turkey can rescue the European Union from deadlock in areas such as the economy and defence. He says full membership with the bloc is the only solution. Erdogan made the comment at a cabinet meeting on Monday. He says Ankara can play a pivotal role in revitalising the EU's ageing economy and workforce, and he warned against the rise of far-right Western democracies. He also cautioned the EU against repeating past mistakes, which he says have hindered Turkey's accession process. Catholics gathered at St. Peter's Square in the Vatican on Monday evening for a prayer service for Pope Francis, as church officials reported a slight improvement in his condition. The service, led by Cardinal Pietro Parolin, marked the first of ongoing nightly prayers for the Pope's health. A Vatican medical update confirmed that the 88-year-old's kidney issue is not a cause for concern. Despite his health struggles, Pope Francis is still scheduled to lead Easter celebrations next month, according to Vatican officials. US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth reaffirmed Washington's commitment to its partnership with Saudi Arabia during a meeting with Saudi Defense Minister Prince Khalid bin Salman at the Pentagon. The talks come as Riyadh takes on a growing diplomatic role, recently hosting US and Russian officials to discuss the war in Ukraine. Hegseth emphasised Saudi Arabia's role in regional security and thanked the kingdom for supporting high-level negotiations.
Our relationship is a critical center of gravity in a very turbulent region in the world. So I want to thank the kingdom also, more specifically, for hosting important discussions between the United States and Russia as we pursue one of President Trump's top priorities, which is bringing peace to the war in Ukraine. And I also want to continue deepening and strengthening our partnership to pursue security and prosperity for both Americans and Saudis.
In Afghanistan, 2 British nationals have been arrested by the Taliban's de facto authorities. The elderly couple, who have lived in the country for nearly 2 decades, running an education-focused NGO, were detained along with a Chinese-American national and their Afghan translator. Tamim Bahis reports from Kabul in Afghanistan.
British nationals Peter and Barbie Reynolds have been arrested in Afghanistan by the country's de facto authorities. The elderly couple, along with another foreign national and a local translator, were taken from central Bamiyan province to Kabul over 3 weeks ago. The Taliban's Interior Ministry has confirmed the arrest of 4 individuals, 2 British citizens, a Chinese-American national, and their Afghan translator, but has provided no further details on the reasons behind their detention. The Reynolds have lived in Afghanistan for 18 years and run Rebuild, an organization providing education and training programs. One of their projects reportedly focused on supporting mothers and children. Their daughter, Sarah Entwistle, told Times Radio that their parents had always sought to respect the Taliban. However, after weeks of silence, their family is demanding answers and calling on the British consulate to intervene. For now, the fate of Peter and Barbie Reynolds remains uncertain. Their family continues to urge authorities to act swiftly for their release. Tamim Bahis for A News in Kabul, Afghanistan.
Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has arrived in Tehran and met with his Iranian counterpart Abbas Araghchi. During the meeting, the ministers discussed regional and bilateral issues. The visit comes a day after the United States imposed new sanctions targeting Iran's oil industry, its primary source of income. Azerbaijan hosted a media training session for journalists from colonised regions, focusing on critical reporting skills. Participants also engaged with communication sector entities and political representatives.
Journalists from various colonized territories have gathered in Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan, to hone their media skills. In a workshop organized by ADA University, local experts have shared their extensive knowledge and know-how to promote critical thinking capabilities and questioning skills in the field of journalism.
During this conducted training and during these aforementioned meetings, they had an opportunity on learning communication benchmarks, and in terms of exchange of experience and exchange of ideas, these meetings were so fruitful for them.
Media representatives from colonized regions also met with Azerbaijani media, like Press Council. Journalists also participated in various meetings with Baku Initiative Group, AIR Center think tank, and with Azerbaijani parliament members.
Turkey has secured the second spot in global mega yacht production, according to the Transport and Infrastructure Ministry.
Transport and Infrastructure Minister Abdulkadir Uraloğlu highlighted the remarkable progress of Turkish shipyards in high technology and design, enhancing their competitiveness on the global stage. Citing the 2025 global order book for mega yachts by Boat International, he noted that Turkey has climbed to second place worldwide in terms of total yacht length, trailing only Italy with an 8.9% increase. The report indicates that 1,138 mega yachts are currently under production or on order globally, with a combined length of 45,487 meters. Minister Uraloğlu further stated that Turkey holds a 12.9% share in global orders and a 14% share in total yacht length, solidifying its strong position in the industry.
One of Azerbaijan's main water sources, the Araz River, has been facing ecological problems for years. Various reports and investigations highlight the growing dangers to local public health in the region's ecosystem due to industrial and mining waste being discharged into the river from Armenia.
The Araz River, a vital water source flowing through Iran, Azerbaijan and Armenia, is now at the center of a major environmental dispute. Iran is preparing to use this river to supply drinking water to Tabriz and nearby cities. But alarming reports suggest the water may be contaminated with heavy metals, raising serious health concerns. A recent investigation by Iranian environmental media reveals that pollution in the Araz has been a concern for over 15 years. Official documents indicate that heavy metals such as lead, arsenic and molybdenum have been detected in the river, elements linked to industrial waste. Iran's Minister of Energy says the 135-kilometer pipeline project to supply drinking water to 2.5 million people. But opposition is growing. Lawmakers and environmental groups are urging authorities to conduct more thorough water safety assessments before moving forward. Experts warn that Armenia's power plants and mining operations are releasing hazardous chemicals into the river. A 2022 study by Iran's Chamber of Commerce even linked pollution to Armenia's Metsamor nuclear power plant, raising concerns about potential radioactive contamination. The Iranian government insists it is in talks with Armenia about pollution issues, but so far no major steps have been taken to clean the river. Last year, Iran and Armenia signed an agreement to clean up the Araz River within a year, but so far, little progress has been made. Environmentalists warn that if urgent steps are not taken, the damage to the river's ecosystem could become irreversible, posing a major threat to water security in the region.
Experts say investigations show that there is a negative impact on water quality and agriculture. Torul Valikanlı explains the legal implications.
The pollution of rivers and lakes has a special place or attention under the auspice of environmental crime concept. Nowadays, the environmental crimes are considered to be a big disaster. Of course, there are plenty of cases or examples of environmental crimes which were committed by Armenia. For example, Okhchuchay transborder river, which flows to the Araz River, and as you know, Araz River is the second largest river in the South Caucasus region. So the pollution of this river directly affects the quality of water resources and irrigating agricultural fields. The discharge of heavy metals in the river, which was made by the Kajaran copper molybdenum plant and Gafan ore processing plant in Armenia, many times more than norm. And it doesn't only destroy the ecosystem and fauna, but same time it's dangerous for human health. It should be noted about the convention on the law of non-navigational uses of international water courses adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in 1997. The second legal instrument is the Convention on the Protection and Use Transborders Water Courses and International Lakes, which was adopted in 1992. In a nutshell, it's Helsinki Convention. And interestingly, Armenia hasn't joined to this convention until yet. And in this context, it's particularly important to note about the arbitration case, which was brought by Azerbaijan before the Permanent Arbitration Court in Haga against Armenia, pursuant to the Convention on the Conservation of European Wildlife and Natural Habitats of 1979. It's called Berne Convention.
Now, over in Spain, unseasonably warm temperatures have led to an early blossom of almond trees. Officials are pointing to climate change to explain the phenomena.
Almond trees in northeastern Spain started to bloom in late January, roughly 3 weeks earlier than usually expected. Officials of the country believe that it is due to unseasonably warm temperatures caused by climate change.
Climate change directly affects the progress of flowering. We have had several decades of intense winters with cold and fog, with winters that are practically spring-like. This year, for example, we could perhaps count the days that have been frosty with the fingers of one hand.
Spain is one of the world's largest producers of almonds, known for both sweet and bitter varieties. The country's Mediterranean climate, warm, dry summers and mild winters, provides the perfect conditions for almond trees to thrive. Typically, almond trees begin to bloom in early spring, with their white or pink blossoms appearing in February or March. These beautiful flowers signal the start of the growing season, often before the trees even have leaves. Despite the early bloom, many locals and tourists are taking advantage of the situation, flocking to almond tree fields to capture the beauty of the flowers.
So happy when I see all the flowers and the bees and the insects and the trees. That's what we hear.
This year marks the second earliest bloom on record since 1981. As climate change continues to impact agriculture, events like this may become more common, reshaping the future of farming in many countries along with Spain.
Thanks for joining us. Keep watching A News for the latest, and we'll be back before you know it.